Hello, my name is Sev, and this is Equine News. So, MLB comic artist Heather Breckel has released a set of guidelines to follow when you are attending panels to ask questions at any brony convention, or probably really any convention in general, where you're going to be attending a Q&A panel. This sort of reminds me of something Equestrian Daily put out back when the first Equestrials came out about teaching people etiquette for going to see the movie. But this is actually much more funny. So I'm going to read Heather Breckel's guidelines for Q&A panel etiquette. Of course, I will have a link to the article on Equestrian Daily in the description, and they have a link to the etiquette post on her blog, on her Tumblr, if you want to check it out for yourself. So, here's the first thing that she says to do for panel etiquette. If you're going to someone's panel, know who they are before you ask them a question. She says, I'm a colorist on a few different series, but I've noticed that a lot of my panels I'll get asked about the story, writing, or even stuff only the show staff would know. As the colorist on the comic, I have absolutely nothing to do with the comic's writing, and I especially have nothing to do with what the show does or doesn't know. And I know just about as much as you, the fan. Having discussed this kind of thing with fellow professionals, this happens to everyone, especially with voice actors of shows. While I'm not offended to be asked these questions, it is kind of a waste of time and shows that you really don't care who is actually on the stage. The con guidebook and website should let you know who is who and who does what, so make sure you're asking questions relevant to the person on the stage. This is really a problem. Like, how stupid are you people? That you're going to, like, an artist or a colorist and asking, like, people are that stupid. They're going to a Q&A for a colorist of the comic and asking, so what's this storyline for Season 5 going to be? Or who's going to be in Season 5? What's the main villain for Season 5? Are you really that fucking stupid? If people are really this stupid, God. People wonder why I'm such a cynical asshole and why I believe there should be a new plague that wipes out humanity. Or at least most of it. Maybe Ebola will do that for us. If you just saw me jump there, it's because there's a spider going at about 500 miles an hour on my curtain right here in front of me. Anyway, next on the etiquette panel is make sure you can speak clearly and be understood. If you can't, please let a staffer know. She says, at almost every panel I've ever been a part of, there was always one or two people that had a really hard time speaking into the mic and were very hard to understand. I feel very bad when I'm unable to answer someone's question due to either technical problems, a language barrier, etc., and it's likely very hard for the person to have to keep repeating themselves. That doesn't mean you can't ask a question, though. If you're very shy or have a speech impediment or aren't very good at English, you can always write your question down. The con staff is there to help you out, so let them know beforehand if you might need assistance. In the event a staffer needs to relay your question for you, this is where writing it down ahead of time will be helpful. Just because you might have difficulty saying your question doesn't mean you should miss out on being heard. Now, this is actually excuse me. This is actually something I've seen quite a lot. I've actually watched quite a few videos of different Q&A panels, and I've seen this happen quite a bit, where people who don't speak English very well, they try to ask questions, and you know, these people who are generally American and don't, you know, and just having a hell of a time understanding this person's English. That's not fair to the person asking the question. It's not fair to the Q&A person either. It's just not fair for anyone involved. And there's also people with speech impediments. They stutter a lot. I suffer somewhat from stuttering at times. You can go back and watch my first Equine News video and listen to me stutter like crazy. And, you know, I don't have a speech impediment, but I know several people who do, or knew several people who did, as I don't really talk to those people anymore, but, you know, it's not, you know, it can be embarrassing, too. It's like, if you're not relaying, you know, you say your question, and the person doesn't understand, you have to keep repeating yourself and repeating yourself. It can be embarrassing, it can be irritating, it can be frustrating, it's, you know, it's just all around not fun, so this is definitely something good, and I really glad someone actually put that out, because most people wouldn't even think to do that, and I think this is something everyone needs to realize that, if you have a speech impediment, you're having difficulty, just, tell one of the staff, hey, look, I'm having difficulty here, can you, just relay the question, write it down, relay it to them. This is pretty good. I like that. The next one is, for panelists and participants both, remember there's a difference between constructive criticism and being an asshole. Oh, this is going to be good. She says, for both sides, try to be as professional as possible. If you had a problem with a comic or episode or whatever, the person on stage will be a lot more likely to actually want to fix said problem if you offer your criticism in a professional and respectful manner. This isn't the YouTube comments, so don't be a dick. For panelists, if someone offers criticism in any way, even if they do it like a jackass, respond in a professional manner. Reacting in a defensive way will only cause problems down the road, especially if someone is making a legitimate point and doing so in a respectful manner. If they're being a jackass, do your best to catch the useful parts, as there might be something hidden in that epic rant about how much they hate you and want you dead. Pro tip, if someone is intentionally trying to be a jerk, they're likely trying to troll you and are doing it for the purpose of getting a reaction. You rob them of their fun if you're as nice as you can be in return. Basically, don't feed the trolls. Now, I have seen people at Q&As be jackasses and criticize things in, like an idiot, like a dick. Just, this shit, this thing you did sucks. You're a fucking asshole. You deserve to die. Go kill yourself. Fuck you. Why would you make that? Why would you write that? I've seen it. It's like, okay, you know what? This ain't YouTube comments. This is real life. Being an asshole here ain't getting you anywhere. It's getting you even less anywhere than doing it in YouTube comments does. Just, but I've never seen the panelists act like dicks before. That's something I actually want to see. I want to see one of the MLP, especially one of the people who works on MLP, be a dick to somebody who's being like a jackass and asking stupid questions, like asking a jackass question or being a jackass and criticizing, and just, I want to see them be a dick. That would be hilarious to me. But I do agree that basically everyone should try to act professional here. I act like a dick in real life, but if I go to something like this and, when I'm in situations like this, I try to act as professional as possible, because I want people to respect me. When I'm with my friends, I act like a dick because that's what I do, but I do want people to respect me and think I'm professional when I do these kinds of things. So, but I do let my anger get the best of me sometimes. But that's a very good tip. Next, she says, be considerate of your fellow con-goers. Don't ask two-part questions, and if there's a lot of hands up / a long line for the mic, try not to ask really loaded questions that will involve very long answers. She says, at my solo panels, there isn't really a lot that can be asked about my process, so I'm fine with two parters and questions that might take more time for me to answer. But at a panel where there's tons of people waiting to ask questions, it's not cool to sneak in that second question or to ask a question that's going to take 10 minutes to answer. For example, I have two questions, I have a two-part question, just don't do it. Q&As have a limited amount of time, and I always hate to see there be a line of 20 people waiting to ask a question, but only one or two can get answered because someone asked a loaded question or snuck in extra questions. Find ways to make your questions specific and to the point. Yeah, I've actually seen this quite a bit in Q&A videos and stuff, where people would be like, I actually have two questions. But most of those I've seen, they weren't like big questions. They were like two really, really short questions that only took a couple minutes to answer. And in that case, this is where I kind of like argue with this. It's like, I say if you have two really short questions, then you should be able to ask them. But for the most part, yeah, don't ask two questions. It's basically supposed to be one question per person. Everyone wants to ask questions, and you're basically being an asshole by sitting there asking two questions. And, I have a hard time agreeing with the whole, not asking really loaded questions thing. It's like, sometimes people really just want to know something about something, and it just happens to take a long time to answer. Maybe other people wanted to ask that question too. It could have answered several people's questions at once. You never know, but I do agree that in some cases it might ruin some people's chance of asking questions because it took the panelists 20 minutes to answer the question this one guy asked. That one's a bit for me, but that's still good advice. You probably shouldn't ask really loaded questions, and you probably should, watch your double part questions. Next one is very short and simple. It says, be considerate of children. She says, I work on mostly all ages titles, so I try to censor myself as much as possible, keep from cussing or going into inappropriate territory. If you're at a con or panel that is dedicated to something all ages, keep the cussing and sex talk to the after-hours panels. If you're especially cool, let kids set up in front so they can see what's going on. This should be common sense. This should be common sense. Like, if there are small children about, and this isn't an 18-plus panel, keep the swearing and sex talk to yourself. I cuss like a sailor. I cuss like a sailor in real life. I cuss like a sailor online. I probably cuss more than most military people do. But if there are children about, I censor myself. I censor myself hardcore. If you are really so brain dead as you're going to sit there and cuss like a sailor in front of children or start talking about sex in front of children, you do not need to be breeding. Get the fuck out. No one has common sense anymore, I swear to God. Next one is, and this is a big one for me, if the word fanfic or headcanon appears anywhere in your question, don't ask it. She says, this might sound mean and ruin a lot of dreams, but most professionals don't read fanfics based on the things they work on, either because they're straight up not told to, they're straight up told not to, or because all their time is spent on that title so they don't have time to read fanfics. So in 100% of instances, it is safe to say that no, the comic show or book did not get ideas from you, nor did they do anything to intentionally break your fanfics or headcanon. They can't read your fanfics, not because they're mean, but because they're probably not allowed to. I'm aware of the existence of the bigger fanfics on the franchise I work on, but I have read exactly 0 of them. I've seen some of the fan comics, fan art, and fan music, but I don't have time for the stories. See, this is something I've never liked about being in fandoms. I've only ever been in 2, mind you. The Brony fandom and one other that none of you watching this will have ever heard of, I guarantee that. And I always hated this because people tend to act like fanfics and their headcanons are the word of God. And so they go and they ask these people about, oh, did you get this from this fanfic? Did you get the inspiration for this from that fanfic? Why did you ruin our headcanon on this? You knew the big headcanon for that was, most of these people are specifically told, especially like the people that work on My Little Pony, I know for a fact that most of the people that work on the show are told specifically, you are not allowed to read fan fiction. You are not allowed to read any of the fan written stories. A lot of them might listen to the fan music. They might look at the fan art, but they're not allowed to read the fan fiction because it might influence their writing in some way that could be negative. I think that's why they're told not to, but they're specifically told not to read the fan stories. Probably to avoid problems like that where they might draw inspiration from one of those fan stories and then it's a big problem. Or they may not like something that was written in a story and they intentionally write something into the show to try and destroy it, and that would be, that would cause all kinds of problems. But, these staff, they don't read the fan fictions. The only people that read the fan fictions are the fans. The only people that give a shit about the fan fictions are the fans. You. No one else. No one on the show gives a shit. Stop asking these questions. The very last one she states is, if it hasn't appeared in the show, comic, movie, book, you probably shouldn't ask about it. This is obviously a moot point. If the series is over and is never coming back, then have at it. And all she says on this is, I found most of these result in you'll find out, we can't spoil you, or we can't talk about that, or we can't talk about that kind of answers. Bummer, I know. But a lot of us are under NDAs and have things we can't talk about. Some people don't get it, man. If you're gonna ask a question and it's something you haven't seen in the show, it hasn't been seen in the comic, hasn't been seen in the movie or the book that the Q&A is about, the staff isn't going to tell you. The staff are under non-disclosure agreements. They're told to only talk about specific things, and if it hasn't come out, like, you can't, like, I mean, if there's a panel that's specifically talking about season 5, you can ask you'll ask questions about season 5 because nothing about that's, only little bits have been revealed, but they're not going to sit there and tell you all the spoilers. They're not going to tell you who the main villain of season 5 is, right? They're not going to tell you how the finale goes. They're not allowed to. It's like, why are you even asking questions about something that hasn't appeared yet? I mean, I know you want to know, but it seems pretty moot, isn't it? Wouldn't you think it's kind of moot? It's like, why would they tell you? And specifically tell this whole crowd about what's going to happen, It's the same, like she said, it almost always results in you'll find out, we can't spoil you, or we can't talk about that. A lot of these just seem like common sense. Like, you would just think that people would know, but apparently not, because somebody go out and make this set of etiquette rules, and I think it's hilarious that people are doing this so often that someone actually had to write a set of etiquette rules for this. And a lot of these, I agree, really just don't be a dick and don't be an idiot. It seems like a lot of people are. But enough of my stupid ranting. Actually, my longest equine news video so far. And in fact, I probably have another one that's going to be equally as long coming up. So, thank you guys for watching, comment, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Equine News. This is Sev, signing off.